Yes, we're recording. All right. I asked Josh what I could do better in the second half. He said, stop depressing everyone. So I said, okay. So now we're... So now we're going to move on to why it's good news. As my pastor father always used to say, you have to know how bad the bad news is to know how good the good news is. So now we're going to talk about why all of that stuff matters in an actionable way that we can actually do something about. Full disclosure, there's slightly more bad news in here, but it's leading to good news. My dog just died, and so this is these two statements are both true. And the first one, everybody kind of knows that food is fuel. Everybody knows that guy who's like, I don't eat for pleasure, I eat for fuel. Most of the time maybe, but that guy's eating ice cream too. And the second one is less intuitive, but I would say equally important and definitely equally true. Food as instructions. What I mean by that is that food acts as instructions to our DNA. So our DNA is the blueprint for everything in us. Every cell has the same set, and different parts of it are expressed. So the DNA inside a neuron in your brain is the same as the DNA that's inside your big toe, but the big toe DNA has different stuff getting expressed than the neuron DNA. And so for our entire body, what our DNA is expressing and the enzymes that come from that and the cellular components that make up tissues, how that stuff gets decided is by global and local molecules that are telling it what to do. There are signaling molecules that are responsible for all of that stuff. And so we inform our DNA with what to do with two things, basically, what we put into our bodies and what we do with our bodies. Those are the two things. And so food as instructions it's telling our DNA what to do. And probably the most obvious example of this is somebody who is a seasoned alcoholic. If you give a 19-year-old at some frat party they shouldn't have been at, if you give them a couple of vodkas or some, whatever, some alcohol, they'll barf everywhere. They're in the ER with alcohol poisoning because their body has not experienced that before. If that same person drinks vodka daily for the next 20 years, that same amount of vodka that would have put them in the hospital when they were 19, now they need that just to not get seizures. If they don't have that vodka in them, they will have seizures. When I worked in the hospital, when I was at the VA, one of the things you could put on the EHR, one of the order form things to checklist, we want this diet, we want this, do this exercise twice a day. For inpatient treatment, you literally could put Budweiser. You had to have a Budweiser at each meal because there were people that would they needed to have alcohol on board in order for their systems to function normally. Same DNA. But that DNA has been told what to do over the years, and to the point where your body responds to it, and it's built in order to respond to the environment that it's got. And so it becomes pretty obvious with alcohol. It's less obvious with food. But what we do with the food that we eat and the types of food we eat will tell our DNA what to do. This is the system that's been hijacked. This is what's been built. The system that was built in order to keep us alive and preserve us has been hijacked, making us really, really hungry and really, really low energy because our DNA responds to the food that we take in. So food as fuel, and I'm going to go faster here because believe it or not, I thought at first where I talked for 45 minutes just earlier, I thought that was 15 minutes. So I'm going to speed things up a little bit here. So we'll skip past this to some degree, but food as fuel, it is all of these things. It is simplistic, and it is. And it's intuitive because it's kind of obvious, okay, if I eat something, this is going to fuel me for whatever I'm doing. And it is also accurate. It is totally true that food acts as fuel. The macronutrients are carbohydrates and protein and fat, and also alcohol is one of the, it's hopefully makes up not quite as much of your diet as the other ones, but it also acts as that. And carbohydrates have 4 calories, or technically kilocalories for every gram protein, 4 calories, fat 9. Alcohol, in case you're curious, every gram of alcohol is 7 calories. And 1 ounce of hard liquor is 15 grams of alcohol. And so it's one of the things, where people are like, I'm being healthy, so I'm just going to have just pure, vodka with whatever diet soda, or there's still she's just heard, she's heard about it. I saw it once on TV. And so there's a high amount of calories. And the interesting thing about the calories in alcohol, beyond what alcohol does, just as far as decreasing your heart rate variability, increasing your sympathetic drive, decreasing your overall fitness once you get past a certain point. That's not really true with a drink or two a day or less, but once you get past that, it does all those things. But the interesting thing about alcohol as a macronutrient is it is legit a poison. Like, your body recognizes it as this is poison, and so it is going to detox it first. It'll turn it into aldehyde, and then from there it will then aldehyde dehydrogenase. Look, I said I wasn't going to talk as much. Anyway, it will do whatever. It will process that first. You will burn alcohol calories before you'll burn anything else that you're eating. And so it's like it puts a pause button on everything else you've done for your nutrition until your body's processed through all that alcohol. And so if you had 3 shots, and it's equals to somewhere between 150 and 200 calories, it's not until you've burned those 200 calories will your body do anything with the other calories that you've consumed. So anyway, those are the fuels. IIFYM, that's the, you've probably seen it, if it fits your macros, and that's a school of dieting that says you want to have this much protein, this much carbohydrate, and this much fat within that guideline, and the calories you've decided you're going to eat, it does not matter. So if you save up all your calories and you figured out that this protein shake and these 6 Snickers bars fits my macros, that is just as good as if you have brown rice, and it doesn't matter the sources of these things. And again, with food as fuel, that is accurate. And this is the famous "a calorie is a calorie," which is absolutely true. And then we're going to talk in a little bit about why that's true, but not particularly helpful. And then we're going to move on. There we go. I went through that a little faster. This here is a bomb calorimeter. In case you ever wondered, like, how do they actually figure out, like, okay, I got the, tasty cakes. Is that what they have at Wawa? Man, I used to eat a lot of those. Which is part of why we're having this talk now. But it'll say on there, this is 340 calories. And if you ever wondered like how they actually come up with those numbers, it is a bomb calorimeter, because a calorie is literally a unit of energy. It's 4,184 joules of energy. And so it's the amount, the technical definition of a calorie is this is the amount of energy it takes. We're talking about the calories in food, which are kilocalories. It's the amount of energy it takes to take 1 liter of water and raise it from 14.5 degrees Celsius to 15.5 degrees Celsius. That is a calorie. And so the way they determine that is that yellow sludge there at the bottom, that'd be whatever thing you're testing out. And you put in your Krispy Kreme donut, and you set it on fire, and you see how much heat does this thing produce. And that is literally how it works. Like, a bomb calorimeter is a tiny oven that measures the energy that comes off when you burn that food. And fat, when you do that, produces 9 calories of energy, protein 4, and so on. There's not like more science that I'm like, there's not extra stuff that I'm leaving out. Like, that is literally how you determine the calories that are in the food that you eat. Our bodies are not bomb calorimeters. They're these like incredibly complex biochemical systems, which I think, So biochemistry is way more complicated, as complicated as that bomb calorimeter was. It's way more complicated than that, because we do not have there's no calorie receptor in our body. That doesn't exist. We have tons of ways to detect nutrients and how much of these micronutrients and all of the different vitamins and minerals that we need, but we don't have a calorie receptor that decides, okay, I need more or I need less. We have nutrient sensing, but we don't have calorie sensing, and it's because we're not a bomb calorimeter. And so you are sending your body different signals, or more accurately, you are making your body produce different signals if you have 100 calories of olive oil than if you have 100 calories of Sour Patch Kids. Your body will respond dramatically different to those 2 calorie inputs. That whole thing of like what weighs more, a pound of feathers or a pound of hammers, or what is it? Steel? What is that? Pound of feathers? Anyway, pound of feathers or a pound of steel. They both weigh the same, haha, and you made your friend look stupid in 3rd grade because you did that trick to him. This, though, 100 calories of olive oil and 100 calories of Sour Patch Kids, yes, they contain the same amount of calories. What they do in your body is dramatically different, and it makes a big difference in what we do for our calorie expenditure, and it makes a big difference for what our brain is hearing about how much we need to eat and how hungry we are. And so the biochemistry being complicated, that was basically just to say we're not one of those bomb calorimeters. So the food as instructions. So we were saying food is fuel, and it is. That's the bomb calorimeter thing. But food as instructions. This is the thing that's equally true and equally important. Macros are not just another way to say 4, 4, and 9, or with alcohol 7, where you're just like this is this many calories and that's it. Protein and carbohydrates and fats, they all have different purposes in your body. They all make your body produce different signaling molecules. And so getting those things right and the sourcing of those things right, it does have an impact. Now again, if you just have somebody like locked in a cell and you're deciding what food they eat, and then you're holding a gun to their head saying when they have to do their cardio and they have to do it, a calorie is a calorie will hold true. Like as miserable as it'll be, they have no choice. But nobody lives that way. Like we live in the real world, and so if you can't, just same way if you hold somebody's head underwater, it doesn't matter how much they're hearing, how much they want to breathe, like they're not going to breathe because you're holding their head underwater. If they have any possible way to breathe, they're going to breathe. And the same thing with this, a calorie might be a calorie, and if you eat less calories, then you'll lose weight and all that. But if there's any possible way to eat them because your body's biological imperative, it's telling you have to, they're going to. It's not a willpower thing. It's the same thing as if you were to say somebody who's starving and they have food in front of them, it's not like, I can't believe you have no willpower to just not eat that food. Like that person's starving, they have to eat that. And all of the exact same signaling stuff is going on in the brain of somebody that's eating that stuff even when they don't need to. So our DNA is a blueprint, and we've already gone over that. And then a word is just, it's to compare it to saying a calorie is a calorie. It's also true to say a word is a word. But I can think of several words I could say right now that would get a far different reaction from my parents than if I was saying the words that I am saying. Because words are words, yes, but they all carry different meanings and they communicate different messages, and that's the same thing with calories. They carry different messages. More accurately, the vehicles that are carrying those calories into your body, Krispy Kreme donut versus spinach, they are telling your body different things. So that's what that means. Okay. So what happens is, and this is something I didn't really know until I started getting more and more into this, but you start to find that there's these two camps when it comes to fitness, nutrition, weight loss, all that stuff. And they're kind of like Team CICO, Team Calories In, Calories Out. That would be, Weight Watchers, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen Greg Doucette on YouTube. He is hilarious. Sounds exactly like that parrot from Aladdin. And he's just, and he's just, and he's like, it's calories, you moron. And so there's Team Calorie In, Calorie Out, and then there's Team Hormones, which is kind of like the new kid on the block, and they are all about, like, it's not specifically the calories, it's what your body is doing with that and the hormones and what it's doing to your metabolic rate and what that's doing to your hunger. And so intermittent fasting and ketogenic diets and low carb diets, all of those things, that's more on the team hormone side of things. Don't even worry about counting your calories. Get the right foods and the rest of it will take care of itself. These two camps, and it's like anything else where like the more polarizing things are, because you've got, it's like politics, the more polarizing it is, those are the people that everybody's listening to because it's people love controversy and all that. And so all of the people that rise to the top in these two camps, like the big thing that they have in common is they both talk about what idiots the people are in the other camp, There's this low carb, down under and low carb Denver, these conferences that happen with these ketogenic diets, and I've watched probably at this point hundreds of the lectures, and it's hilarious because they just sit around like so smug about it. Like, can you believe people think calories matter? And then everybody laughs, and then you flip over and you watch somebody like Greg Doucette, and they're talking about what idiots these guys are. The thing is. And here's my non-controversial stance. They're both correct. They both matter. It's absolutely true that if you bring in more calories than you put out, then you are going to gain weight. But that is useless information unless you are, making it so that you're not as hungry. If you're not as hungry and you have more energy to do more exercise and activity, which is what your signaling molecules are responsible for, not willpower, signaling molecules, you can only keep your own head underwater for so long. You have to get the signaling molecules right. Until that hormone side of thing gets figured out, it's impossible, which is, I think, what we're moving on to now. So next up is it's hormone. So there's insulin. There's a lot of different hormones that have to do with this stuff, and hunger hormones and ghrelin and leptin and GLP-1 and all these different things that decide, how hungry we are. The overarching master hormone that really does matter more than all, it's kind of like if it was an org chart of the company, the thing that's at the very top that everything reports to, or more accurately, that tells everything else what to do, is insulin. Insulin it's the master storage hormone, and it puts fat into fat cells. It prevents lipolysis, which is the fat leaving fat cells. It takes glucose and puts it into muscles so that it can be turned into glycogen. It takes glucose and it puts it into every other cell. Every cell in your body has insulin receptors, like everything, including like red blood cells, neuron. Every cell has insulin receptors, and it's because it is the key hormone that tells your body, we have nutrients here. Let's store and feed and feast store. It's the storage hormone, and it's why if insulin's around, that your body will prevent. It's dumb to try to like store energy and burn energy at the same time. If the signal's here that like we've got energy on board, of course it's going to quiet everything else down that's saying let's burn energy. And that's what insulin does. It lets your body store energy and it prevents your body from burning energy. I'm speaking in absolutes. Everything's actually much more on the spectrum, but in general, it's this master storage hormone. Now, here's why it's a problem. That was great in South Dakota 50,000 years ago, but it's different now because of what we have for signaling with the foods that we're eating. So now there's this thing that's we're figuring out more and more over the last 50 years called insulin resistance. And that is, there's so much insulin around that your body then responds to it by saying like, geez, cripes, there's so much insulin. We have to, if we just respond to this like normal, then we're going to die. So we have to increase the resistance to this insulin. And so it has to do with the receptors being less sensitive to it and having more or less of them. But insulin resistance is not like a minor niche thing. It's 88% of people to some degree have some level of insulin resistance. There was this study that was done to look at optimal metabolic health, and it measures these 5 different things. There's 5 different factors, which I thought I was going to go into, but I'm going way too slow. But there's different things that determine metabolic health. It's generally agreed on, this is true of the calorie counting people and the hormonal people, that metabolic syndrome, or which is kind of leading into prediabetes, which is leading into diabetes, that it'd be more accurate to just say it's insulin resistance syndrome, that it's people that have become insulin resistant. There's 5 different things that go into that, having to do with waist size and blood pressure and triglycerides, all these things. But only 12% of Americans are check the box of all 5 being perfect. The other 88% have at least one of them out of whack, which means there's some level of insulin resistance there. It is incredibly common, and it's not super well known, which is part of why we're here talking about this. And so, why are people becoming insulin resistant? It's this. So there's sugar, and it's like everywhere, and it's not like. So people should stop going to the sugar jar and like eating spoonfuls of sugar. It is hidden in everything. This is the chart of sugar in the United States leading up to 2005. That's the most recent one I could find. And so all of this increase in sugar is something that's really happened dramatically over the last 100 years or so. And it's in stuff that's like if you bread. Which should just be bread, it's nearly impossible to find bread that you can't find sugar listed somewhere in the ingredients. Beyond that, and it's true with every other thing that comes in a box or a bag, but beyond that, you don't see sugar in the bread. It's hidden under one of these stupid names. And so I tried so long to format this better, by the way, until I finally just titled it was poorly formatted. But there's a million different names for sugar, which is not just because people are like, I want to express my creativity. And I mean, it's to hide these things because, the idea that no one thinks like sugar is probably really good for me. And so sugar may not be really good for me, but I bet agave nectar is because agave sounds exotic. Florida crystals is my favorite, which I don't know if that one's on the list or not. I think it is. Yeah.